Hello everyone, in this video I'll share my interview experience that I have given in the CGPDTM exam. I am from physics background, so they asked a lot of questions from physics along with some questions from IPR. Let's start with some basic information. My interview was on 7th April 2024. The place of interview was Crown Plaza, which is situated at Okhla, New Delhi. Interview reporting time was 11 am, so I reached there around 10:45 am. After reaching there, they did the biometric at the ground floor. After that, they told to go to the 6th floor where the interview was happening. On the 6th floor, there is a room where 3 members were checking the documents such as MSc mark sheet, certificate, class 10 to 12 mark sheet and certificates. After they told me to sit there and wait for my turn. Now there were other students also waiting for their interview. Around 12 they called me and told me to go to a particular room where the interview was happening for the physics students. In fact, there were different rooms for different subjects. Now in my interview panel there were 3 members, 1 female and 2 male. Initially, the one male person asked me to introduce myself and then asked me some question from IPR. So for example, they start with some IPR question asking some basic concept about patent. So the question was like that: suppose you make a new process of making cheese from milk. So what is the category of intellectual property under which you will choose to protect it? So I give the answer like that there can be 2 intellectual property, one is patent and trade secret. And now under the patent category, what are the criteria and how we can patent that. So I told like that. And there is another question, what are the section of the Patent Act 1970. So whatever I known from section 1st to around section 100. So I mentioned around 7-8 section. So they are happy after that. Then they asked about my research area because I am working. So I told them that currently I am working as a PhD student. So they asked me about my research area. So I told that my research area is photonics. So they asked me some questions from photonics, like what do you mean by the photonic crystals and why the band gap originates in a photonic crystal. So although I know about the photonic crystals like that, but they asked me what are the characteristics of photonic crystals, all the thing. But yeah, at that time it was difficult to answer why band gap was origin. So I told that I'm not getting that question. I'm not getting the answer, sorry. So after that they asked me about other things like negative refraction. So as you know that in photonics, we work on different microstructures and artificially structured metamaterials. So using that you can make really new optical things. So negative refraction is one of them. So they told me to how the optical ray or light ray can propagate in negative refraction like that. So I gave that answer. Then there was one person who is from physics. So he started asking questions from basic physics background. Question was what are the postulates of quantum mechanics. So as I know that there are 3 to 4 postulates, so I tell them that these are the postulates. And they asked about what is an Hermian operator and what is the properties of Hermitian operator. Then they asked about what is ergodicity. So as you know from statistical mechanics, so there is a theorem or hypothesis, ergodic hypothesis. Then they told me to write down the legendary polynomial, so also the legendary equation and the generating function. So I wrote down all the things on a paper they have given. Then they asked me about what about stimulated emission. So how we do that, and what happens in stimulated emission, how the laser action happen, like that. and they asked me about like give an example of a 2-level laser. So as you know that 2-level laser, like there is no example, so there are 3-level, 4-level laser. Now they tell me, okay, they told me about that what do you mean by Frank Condon principle. So I start with the principle, and also I explain some example, like for example oxygen, iodine, carbon monoxide, like what are the how the electronic spectra varies. So I draw that on the paper they have given. Then they asked me about questions from this is from solid state physics or condensed matter physics. So how the electrical conductivity varies with the temperature for an extrinsic semiconductor. So I started with intrinsic, like what happens in intrinsic and what different like happens in extrinsic semiconductor. So after that they asked me question about from electronics, like what is the difference between avalanche and Jenner breakdown. Then from communication principle, like what is modulation and why we need that. Then what is the functional form of a frequency modulated frequency spectrum. Then tell me about the quark model. So I described the quark model. Okay, so these are the questions they asked. So basically there are they are asking me question from different topics randomly, like from quantum to statistical, from condensed to electronics. And yeah, it was like a good experience, and I attempted, or I given answer around 90% of the questions they have asked. And yeah, that was my experience.